Ever find yourself, kind of wondering how different countries, how their economies, like, actually play out in people's lives? I mean, we hear these terms tossed around, socialism, capitalism, but what do they really mean for, like, the everyday person living in those systems?
Right, right. It's easy to get lost in the abstract.
Exactly. So that's what we're diving into today, getting specific about socialism and its connection to poverty. We've got a really interesting mix, this time articles, even a podcast episode, all tackling this topic. And just to be clear, we're not here to crown a winner in the whole capitalism versus socialism debate.
Yeah, this isn't about taking sides.
Not at all. It's more about, like, unpacking these real-world examples and seeing where it leads us. Like, how does a country like Venezuela, rich in oil, end up facing such widespread poverty after adopting socialism? That's got to make you think, right?
It's a fascinating case, really. See, when Hugo Chavez came to power in Venezuela, his whole thing was combating poverty, using their oil wealth to, lift everyone up.
Right, kind of that classic socialist ideal, resources for the collective good.
Exactly. And initially, it probably seemed like, okay, this could work. But then,
It went a bit sideways, didn't it?
to put it mildly, you see, Venezuela's government took control of industries, started redistributing wealth, but then their economy, well, it tanked. Hyperinflation hit them hard, meaning everyday things, even basic necessities, their prices went through the roof. People couldn't afford, well, anything.
So the opposite of what they were going for.
It's almost ironic, and the podcast we listened to, it really drove this point home. Instead of closing the gap between the rich and poor, the wealth gap actually seems to have gotten wider. Now you have many Venezuelans who rely heavily on government handouts just to survive, which wasn't the goal at all.
Really highlights that it's not just the system itself, but all the, like, nuances of how it's put into practice, the decisions made along the way.
Absolutely. The devil is in the details, as they say.
Speaking of which, we have another example lined up, Cuba. Now, they've had their successes, right? Like healthcare and education, both state-funded and available to all citizens. That's huge in the fighting poverty column.
It is. Cuba's social programs, they're often praised. But, and this is important, what our sources didn't dive deep into are the limitations on personal freedoms there, how those limitations might actually be impacting their economic situation.
So it's more complex than just, hey, free healthcare, problem solved.
Way more complex, because even with those social safety nets, many Cubans still face real economic hardship.
So even with efforts to provide basic needs, poverty's still a factor. Which makes me think about this, like, paradox of power we sometimes see in socialist systems. You have this system designed to share wealth equally, but then you see those in charge, they accumulate a significant amount of wealth, right? While poverty is still an issue for many, it's like,
It challenges the ideal, doesn't it?
it really does. Makes you wonder, is there a built-in limit to how effective socialist policies can be in truly eradicating poverty? Or does it always come down to those specific conditions within each country, how things are actually implemented? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a question that sparked endless debate, that's for sure. And there's no easy answer. It likely varies, case by case. But it definitely highlights the complexities we're dealing with. Take Cuba, for instance. They've made strides, sure, healthcare, education, but they've also been dealing with, like, economic stagnation for decades. It reminds you that even with those safety nets, a country needs, a dynamic economy to really thrive. And that brings up something else really interesting from our sources. What if the U.S., think about it, the U.S. is this economic powerhouse. What if it had gone socialist right from the get-go?
Whoa, okay, now that's a thought experiment.
Right.
Would we be where we are today, same global standing and all, if the Founding Fathers were like, you know what, socialism's the way? It's almost like rewinding history.
It really gets at the core of how these systems work, The U.S. system, yeah, it's got its issues, but it's always been driven by this, like, innovation, entrepreneurship, that whole work hard, take risks, reap the rewards mentality is like this engine that's always pushing for something new, something bigger.
And you see it constantly, right? All these tech giants, Apple, Google, Microsoft, they started small, ambitious, and now they're everywhere. I think that same trajectory happens under a strictly socialist system.
$1 million question, right? A socialist U.S., maybe they prioritize different values from the start. Robust social safety nets, for example, which, hey, has its own merits. But would it have fostered that same, like, build it from the ground up, gotta compete globally energy? Who knows?
True. And let's not pretend capitalism's all sunshine and rainbows, right? We can't ignore the inequality issues, people struggling. But this thought experiment, it really makes you consider those trade-offs.
Hmm.
What do we as a society want to prioritize? And how do those choices shape everything that comes after?
Exactly. It's not about one system being inherently better. It's about recognizing both have their strengths, their weaknesses. The challenge, and maybe this is the million-dollar question, is finding some kind of middle ground.
That sweet spot,
Yeah.
where you can provide for people, ensure their well-being, but still have that space for growth, for innovation, for people to chase their own aspirations. Now, that'd be something.
Sounds utopian, but if these examples have taught us anything, it's that how it's all put together, that's what matters. How you design it, implement it, keep adapting it to what people actually need. That determines its success.
So where does this all leave us? If we were designing like an economic system from scratch, what do we take from all these examples? It's kind of like we've got this big puzzle, right?
Definitely. And it's about figuring out how the pieces all fit. What's essential, what might not work so well, and how do you create something, that actually benefits everyone?
All right, so let's play pretend. We have all the parts, all the different systems just laid out. Where do we even begin?
Well, if we're talking about a system that puts people first, those social safety nets we've been talking about, those are crucial. Like universal health care, good education, making sure everyone has their basic needs met. That's where, socialist ideals, they really come in strong. That emphasis on equity, taking care of each other.
Creating a system where, no one's left behind. But we also need that, I don't know, that drive, that spark to keep things moving forward. A society that can't sustain itself, doesn't grow, that's not a winning formula.
100%. You need that opportunity for people to flourish, right?
Right.
Go after their goals, contribute to the bigger picture. That entrepreneurial spirit, the freedom to innovate, to compete, that's where capitalist systems, they often have the edge.
It's almost like, and maybe this is too simplistic, but it's like socialism builds the foundation for fairness, for basic well-being, and then capitalism brings that engine for progress, for pushing boundaries.
Interesting way to put it. And it really underlines that there's no magic answer that works everywhere. Each country with its own history, its culture, its unique challenges has to find its own balance.
So what do we leave our listeners with today? What can they actually do with all this?
Stay curious. Don't just take things at face value. You see those headlines about socialism, capitalism. Think about everything we've talked about, the potential, the pitfalls, the importance of finding that middle ground.
Ask yourself, what kind of world am I hoping for? What matters most to me? And how can I help build a system that reflects that?
Because these systems, these models, they're not just abstract ideas, right?
Sorry.
They directly impact people's lives. And it's on all of us to stay informed, ask the tough questions, work towards a world where everyone has the chance to thrive.
Powerful stuff. So next time you're, I don't know, scrolling through those vacation pics, take a second to think about the systems at play, even behind those picture-perfect scenes. And remember, wanting to learn more, wanting to understand, that's always a good thing. Keep diving deep, and we'll be here to explore the world's complexities right alongside you.